everybody, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of HBCU Huddle. In case you do not know, I am CJ Hurt, joined alongside as always by Mike Wallace. Mike, what's going on, man?
What's going on, CJ? You got the beanie, man. Is it getting cold? Is it getting cold? The temperature's dropping?
Here's my rule.
Yeah.
Midway through September, no matter what.
Okay.
Hat, long sleeves, pants, especially outside. And you know I walk into work. So when I'm out and about, I'm in a hoodie or a jacket, a hat, and pants. It's cold and flu season. I guess we throw COVID season in there as well. Yeah. Stay covered so that the germs don't get on your skin, and then you start scratching or rubbing, and then you touch your nose, and now you get sick. So that's my rule. Right around mid-September, that's what I'm doing.
Man, mid-September, I'm still hoping for the last chance to get to an outdoor pool.
Pool, shorts, that sort of thing. I'm trying to avoid all that.
That's cool. I understand, man. I understand. I'm embracing this last stretch of 80s and low 90s that we're going to have around here. But it is a different temperature inside the building, so definitely, you got to have the beanie on.
Absolutely. It's a good show today, Mike. A lot to get to. We'll take a look at some players who have stood out, started the season real strong. We'll highlight some of those players at the HBCU ranks across the FCS D2 and maybe even D3 as well. We'll discuss, of course, the Boxer Roll standings and rankings and polls this week. We got last week's pick six to recap. We'll give you some picks of our own. Plus, we got some pretty cool culture maker stuff in that last segment. But I first want to start with some sad news coming out of Tuskegee as a shooting took place on campus. 4 injured, 1 critically wounded. Last I checked over the weekend. Want to be sure we send our thoughts and prayers to the Golden Tiger community down there in Tuskegee, Alabama.
Yeah, it was one of those sad stories, man. And when I saw it, I immediately thought of you as an alum of Tuskegee. You're representing Tuskegee today with your cap there. And it's one of those stories, man. Off campus, someone that's not affiliated necessarily, allegedly, with the university gets on campus at an on-campus party, and starts to shoot. And it's unfortunate it happened in the wee hours of Saturday night going into Sunday, and somebody is critically injured. And it's one of those situations where we can't have this on any campus, let alone an HBCU. And what you hope for is that the parents of the students who are at the university and the students there, they've spent this week, they canceled some classes earlier this week, and then they spent the rest of the week offering counseling services to students who may be impacted emotionally by what happened at an on-campus apartment. The university claims that it was a sort of an unauthorized party, so they're not sanctioning the party. I don't know what party on campus is ever sanctioned. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That you just roll up, right? Yeah. And but having said that, there's some liability issues, I'm sure, was the reason for that kind of language. But at the end of the day, man, thoughts and prayers, as you said, to the Tuskegee community down there as they try to move forward from this tragic incident that happened with the shooting.
I think all parties involved, I think I'd have to double check the people who were shot and the person doing the shooting. I believe all of them were not students. That's the story that I get if I'm remembering it correctly. And listen, man, you and I were both in college at one point in time. I don't know about you, Mike, but I didn't have money to go out every weekend. And so what would I do when I wanted to hang out? I'd go to somebody's apartment or I'd go to somebody's dorm room, and music would be being played, and we'd play like board game or cards, or we might get up and dance a little bit or what have you. And that's sort of the vibe that I got. And I know that area, like West Commons is that area where, I get to go to the West Commons. I can now have members of the opposite sex over whenever I want. So cool, it's Friday, it's Saturday. Y'all don't want to go out? I don't want to go out either. I don't really got money like that. Everybody just come through. And what I would imagine happened is there was a couple of those, because it's set up like an apartment. And so it's a couple of those types of things. I think people are calling them kickbacks now. There's a couple of those types of things happening, and some people from off campus come through with ill intentions. One of them with ill intentions, and then shots get fired and people injure themselves running away. It's not like it was advertised. I don't know if y'all had the flyers on the cars, but the thing I hated most about parking on campus is coming out of class and there was always multiple party flyers on the car. It's not one of those type situations, and even if it was, it wouldn't really matter. People got shot. So it's sad, and this is a trend that is happening on college campuses everywhere, where somebody with a gun comes through and unfortunately start shooting. We saw it earlier this year with Edward Waters, and thankfully that person got ran off of that campus. Unfortunately, went straight to like a Dollar General and murdered a handful of people. We saw it in North Carolina. UNC Chapel Hill had a student come on campus, or had somebody come on campus rather, and shoot a teacher. Virginia, the University of Virginia, is honoring 3 football players who were killed at the end of last season on campus on the team bus. And ended up having their season canceled. I remember being in school when Virginia Tech, that shooting took place. And we're way in Tuskegee, Alabama. We were panicking. We were like, okay, so what's the protocol? What are we supposed to do? And that is 07, 08 maybe? And this hasn't gotten much better. Gun violence is a big issue over here in the United States, and I hate when it bleeds over into learning spaces, elementary schools, middle schools, colleges, doctorate programs, high schools, things of that nature. It's always stuff.
And it is, man. And I remember, this isn't anything new either. I remember being at Grambling State University as a student my freshman year, shooting on campus. You know what I mean? And I remember just hanging out after, it was a Friday night, going into the first home football game, and we're all back in that day. The dorms weren't integrated in terms of male and female. Right? They were separated.
I don't think Tuskegee's is to this day. And that's why the Commons is where everybody would go.
Which is hence the Commons, right? So everybody would congregate over on the girls, the ladies' dormitory side, which was right across from the football stadium at the time, man. And 300, 400, 500 students, maybe 1,000 just gathering out there in the parking lot. And then next thing you know, a whole group starts running, the next group starts running, and then by the time you know, you're running, and then you look back and you're like, what was we running for? And you hear boom, 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 boom. You hear shots. So, I've been in that kind of environment where shootings took place on a college campus. And then, at that time, it was one of those things where, hey, that's just, what it is on a Friday night in a lot of communities that we came from. But, at the end of the day, man, you don't want this. You don't want this to happen. You need more security if necessary. There needs to be more of a barrier to prevent outsiders from getting onto these college campuses and access. I know that's difficult to do because a lot of times we're bringing on people who are from the community and all that kind of stuff that's riding with us and stopping by and visiting. But when something like this happens, you have to look at everything, man. And fortunately, Tuskegee is taking that time this week to look at some of those measures to help keep people safe.
Absolutely. This do a hard transition, a hard pivot to some more fun news, some news that we are known for sharing on this show. HBCU football season is 4 weeks in. So we are a quarter of the way through, a third of the way through the season now. Here we decided that we wanted to take a look at some players whose names you might not know, who you should know. Some of the players that are standing out, making an impact, making some noise at the HBCU ranks. And I don't know if there's a better place to start than Joel Felder, the running back out of West Virginia State, 2-time Mountain East Conference Player of the Week. He leads the MEC in rushing attempts with 88, total yards with 548 yards, and yards per game averaging about 137 yards per game. He also leads all HBCU backs in total rushing yards and rushing yards per game, 4th in D2, in all of D2 in rushing yards per game. Mike, when I say the name Joel Felder, what comes up? What comes through your mind?
Just a beast of a running back. I mean, this is a guy that is one of those transfers. He came down from the FBS level, transferred into West Virginia and West Virginia State, and is really putting that program back on the map again with the way that they play. They don't get a lot of hype and hoopla. They're outside of the SIAC and the CIAA, which are the 2 conferences that we talk primarily about on the HBCU Huddle. But when you have a special back that's putting together the kind of year that he's putting together, he certainly deserves a mention. You mentioned 4th overall in Division II. I looked at every division. He's 9th overall
and across division?
In NCAA across division. So his average 137 a game that he's toting on the ground is 9th best in the country at Division I, II, and III. So all of college football in the NCAA ranks, he's 9th overall in rushing. So keep an eye on him early this season.
And they're having a pretty good season. They're 3-1 on the season.
3-1, yes.
And he's a large reason why.
Absolutely.
Terrell Gardner got a chance to watch him play this week in a really, really bad, sloppy game for Alabama A&M and Arkansas Pine Bluff. But he stood out. He's one of those players that absolutely jumps off the screen when you watch the Bulldogs play. He's 15th in all-purpose yards in the FCS. He leads all FCS HBCU players in all-purpose yards per game with 131.5. He's top 10 in the FCS in combined return yards with 293. Week 2 SWAC Specialist of the Week. And the way that they use him on offense, they can't get him the ball fast enough. Just find a way to get this dude the ball. Yeah. Coach Maynard and that Bulldogs offense is like, when's the last time we threw him the ball? When's the last time we ran a bubble screen? Can we get him on a slant? What can we do to get him involved in the play? He's also got over 100 yards receiving on the season as well. He concerns me. Bulldogs, big-time matchup against my Golden Tigers this week, Mike.
That's a big-time game right there, and he's up front and center. He reminds me a lot of sort of a smaller version of a Debo Samuel in terms of how they try to get him the ball in a lot of different spaces. And also a little bit of a Tyreek Hill in terms of what he's able to do once he catches the ball. So when you add all of that up, my reference was going to be a Peter Warrick, but that's a sort of a dated reference in terms of, going back 20 years now to what I saw when I covered Florida State back in that day. But this is the kind of guy that get the ball to him and wait for great things to happen. A lot of great things hadn't happened yet for Alabama A&M, but he's one of the reasons that's going to help turn their season around if they take it from here.
Oh, Rowland.
Yeah,
Tennessee
Chris
State.
Rowland.
Tennessee State, Deacon Jones Trophy winner. It's trophy, right? I'm pretty sure it's trophy. For best black college football player, best HBCU football player. That's who he reminds me of.
Yeah. And that stature, too.
That stature, that size. And I think Rowland was a bit of a better route runner and maybe had slightly better hands. But that shiftiness, that quickness, that determination to make a play and find the opening, he reminds me a lot of him. That yak. Yeah. And maybe it is
yards after catch or yard after reception or yards after touch. He specializes in that.
Maybe it is the quarterback situation where I think Chris Rowland may have had a bit of a better quarterback than Gardner, but Gardner should be able to run fly routes and just burn defenses if you've got the arm and the accuracy to put it on them. Yeah. I look forward to watching him play again this week, but I do not want him to play well against my Golden Tigers. Next up, out of Benedict, defensive end, Loobert Denelus, second in D2 in total tackles for loss and tackle loss per game, leads HBCUs in tackles for loss and tackles for loss per game, leads D2 in all HBCUs and sacks on the season with 7 of them. Mike, this Benedict defense is stacked, and they are great once again.
Yes,
and he is a part of the reason why they've got a couple other standout defensive linemen. I think they got another standout defensive end on the other side, but he is absolutely the engine that helps that defense roll.
You can't block him. You can't block him on that level. He's probably not even supposed to be playing down on that level, but he's been dominant for a long time. This is the second straight year that he's been performing at an All-American level, not just strictly an HBCU All-American level, but an NCAA All-American level for Division II ranks. And this is a guy who was the preseason player of the year for the SIAC. So, I mean, when you come in with that kind of resume and they still can't block you, every game they're scheming for you, and you still can get into that backfield and get pressures and tackles for losses and sacks, that just tells you the kind of dominant force that this young man is. And hopefully he can continue to trend along those lines for Benedict and get himself into some camps and some combines and get some NFL eyes on him in a scouting round, because I think he's a guy that's potentially capable of playing at the next level.
That was Farmer last year for Lane.
Yep.
And everybody knew where he was on the field. And
Andrew Farmer II.
Andrew Farmer II. And I watched Lane play a handful of times. I watched them specifically here live in person play against Tuskegee last year, and it was very clear. Tuskegee not only shifted the line his way, but double-teamed him as well to try and keep him out of as many plays as possible. And it to an extent, it worked. It did. That hasn't been working for my man right here. It has not been working for those teams who go up against Benedict. He's still finding a way to get in the backfield, still finding a way to make plays. Tackles for loss, sacks is good to see.
Disruptions.
Just so disruptive.
Yeah.
So disruptive. We take a look at Alabama State. Kisean Johnson, not that Kisean, the different Kisean. Alabama State second in the FCS in receiving yards per game. 100-plus receiving yards in every game this year. 8 catches per game. 5th in all of the FCS. One of the great receivers we have at the HBCU level right now. Just a pure receiver. Somebody who you know is going to step on the field, not only take the tops off of defenses, but also make solid route running decisions and help move the chains, keep them moving. He's a great possession receiver, a great possession threat as well.
And the frustrating thing about that is that for as productive as he is, Alabama State still hadn't had that signature breakthrough yet this season. They're a middling team, right around 500 through the first month of the season. I expected them to be a little bit better. The season is still ahead of them. They still have a chance to get some wins. But at this point, they have to overcome a sluggish start overall offensively by getting the ball to this guy, putting him in positions, limiting the turnovers, and then continuing to play, because that's what's been hurting them. Turnovers, and they're in close games, but just turnovers are hurting them right now from the offensive side because they're not getting him the ball enough probably.
Jeremy Moussa rounds out the players, and everybody, if you follow HBCUs, you know about Davius Richard, you know about Jeremy Moussa. Davius has not played since that UCLA game, so I don't know what this will do come the end of the season. I don't know when he's expected back, but that's just something to keep an eye out. But Moussa's played in every game. Tied for 5th in the FCS with 8 touchdowns. Leads all HBCUs in passing yards per game. Top 20 in FCS with 13.8 yards per completion. I do believe that leads all of HBCUs as well. And he's leading a Florida A&M team that is thinking championships, thinking SWAC East, SWAC Celebration Bowl championships, Mike.
And he has the keys to do it. Like, this is his offense, second full year as a starter right now. You're seeing him blossom and become the kind of quarterback that Willie Simmons expected when he got there. This is a kid that another one of these guys that transferred down from the FBS level, had a couple different stops along the way before he found his way to FAMU, but he found a home there, and he is basically unstoppable. They figure out a way to win games. They were sluggish against West Florida a couple of weeks ago. That game shouldn't have been as close as it was early. Then they kicked in and took off. We saw them come out with a great start against Jackson State at the beginning of the season. You know, this is a team right now that's rolling, and you know their season is looking like it's going to end, as you said, in a championship if they keep this up, and it's because of him and that stout defense, because they have it on both sides of the ball. And Moussa is, like I said, when I saw him at SWAC Media Day, he came in with this aura, this smile on his face, this confidence. And, you know, you're seeing it play out on the field, too, because he does not get rattled. There's not a situation, whether it's at North Carolina against the FBS team or in Bragg Memorial Stadium when he's playing his home games, where he's ever discombobulated or rattled. And he has that cool, calm, and collected nature about him, and FAMU is showing it on the field as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So those are some players to keep an eye on. Those are some players whose names we thought you should know. If we missed somebody, if you think we should have added a different player, or if you think there are some players that we need to keep an eye on, I'm sure the I Love has something to say there. There are quite a few studs over there for Jackson State and elsewhere at the HBCU level. Feel free to hit us up. I'm at Con Radicalness on Twitter. Mike is my Mike Check Men on Twitter as well. Hit us up. Share with us some of your favorite players at the HBCU ranks so far this football season. On the other side, we're going to talk some Box to Row polls. We're going to talk Mike's polls. We're going to give our picks for games this week. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Live across North America, Adam Sandler.
It's going to be our kind of night.
Joking.
One more cartwheeling out.
Singing.
You guys want to get funky? Let's get funky together.
Funkin'.
I've been thinking about you. One zip. Oh, shit, man.
FedEx Forum, November 16th. The I Missed You Tour. Get tickets now at livenation.com.
Biggest off-season development, what you think?
The additions of Marcus Smart and Derrick Rose, both are hugely important, I think, to this team for leadership purposes.
Just the fact that you locked up Desmond Bain on a max contract.
Hey, Grizzlies fans, be sure to tune in to Grisby, where the panel and I break down all things Grizzlies and take a look at the rest of the NBA as well. The show is live every Wednesday, 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
8-time Grammy Award-winning Anita Baker. Anita Baker, the songstress, live in concert. For one night only. FedEx Forum, November 22nd, 2023. Get tickets now at livenation.com. Don't miss your chance to see the legendary Anita Baker live in Memphis.
Everyone's favorite shoe is a friggin' Travis Scott. I feel like everyone loves these shoes. Not these ones, but there's another Travis Scott collab released or scheduled for 2024. Can you hear the excitement in my voice?
They are doing everything they can to build up the hype.
I think these are going to flop.
I think these are so ugly.
The
Sneak Fest Show, live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Welcome back in, everybody. Second segment here, Mike. Figure it'd be a good time to look at the box to row polls from this week. You got FAMU and North Carolina Central 1 and 2, like they've been all season long in some order. Benedict is third, followed by JSU and Tuskegee. They round out your top 5. Then you go Virginia State at 6, Prairie View A&M up from 10 last week. They're at 7. Hampton is at 8. Virginia Union is 9. And Morgan State, they fall a little bit down to 10 after being 8 last week. Mike, what stands out to you?
Well, I mean, there's some differences in terms of what my ballot looked like that I submitted for this very poll there. Morgan State disappointed me, really. I mean, they had a chance to win that game at home against Albany. They should have won. It got away from them, then it got back to them, and then they lost it in overtime. So that momentum that they had, just from the beginning of the season beating Richmond has now faded. They've lost 3 straight since then. So the fact that they're still hanging on, that's kind of quizzical to me. Other than that, I think everything is shaping up the way it needs to. I do have in my poll, if we can get to mine in a second here, I have North Carolina Central still up top and then FAMU. So my 1-2 is a little bit different. But Benedict is 3, which is turned out to be the case in the poll. Tennessee State's not getting the respect nationally that I seem to be giving them regionally here. They're in my top 4, whereas they're not even in the national poll. They're in my ballot up there. Jackson State, obviously. Norfolk State has turned this season around. Big Worm, man. We called him out early.
I love it.
Big Worm. Dawson Odoms, the coach at Norfolk State, has turned his season around with some quality wins the last couple of weeks. And they got a big-time game, a prove-it game, and we'll get to that in the pick 6 against North Carolina A&T. But Prairie View bounced back. They played Grambling this week at the State Fair Classic. Hampton is hanging in there. They had a bye week. Tuskegee, man, I wanted to move them up, but I just couldn't just yet. But 4-0 says a lot. Big-time game this week. This is a big prove-it game. And then Virginia State is looking like the best team in the CIAA at this stage of the season so far at a perfect 3-0, 4-0.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Tuskegee has big games. It's a lot of those. This is it. This for me. This is the
This your time. This your time.
My favorite part of the schedule.
Yeah.
Because it is, all right, we're going to finish up some out-of-conference games if you hadn't played any. But now we're about to move into the meat of the conference slate. And so many times for all FCS schools and for some D2 schools and D3 schools, the level of competition you play earlier is way beneath you or way above you. There's a lot of that going on. You could be, Pine Bluff, and you'll play Miles one week, D2 Miles, and then you'll mess around and play Arkansas State the very next week. And so those aren't, it's tough for me to gauge what's what when the talent discrepancy and the resource discrepancy is what it is between the levels. But now it's like on like. Now you're playing everybody you're a SWAC school, you're playing everybody in the SWAC. You're a MEAC school, is everybody in the MEAC, SEAC, CIAA. It's the same thing for both of those. I love it, and I look forward to it. Last week, before we take a look at this week's games, we both made all the same picks, so nobody gained any ground. Mike is 17-7 overall. He went 4-2 last week. He missed on Colorado, Oregon, minus the 21. Oregon went out there and put the hammer down. Did anything stand out to you? Was that surprising to you in any way, Mike?
How dominant they were from the jump. and how little of an adjustment Colorado's offensive coordinator is making in these games. We saw this was a problem when Deion was at Jackson State. They pass the ball and drop back 95% of the time. I know the offensive line struggles, but you put them in even more of a struggle when the defense knows every single time Shedeur is going to drop back. They're going to get that young man destroyed physically if they don't turn this around. And now you go from Oregon, who had it out for you, to USC, who could be a championship team this year, back-to-back weeks, and you're getting more and more hurt. Not only now are you without Travis Hunter, you might also be without Shiloh Sanders, you know what I mean, who had to be hospitalized this week coming out of that game as well, too. So we'll see. I absolutely respect and love Shedeur Sanders for his toughness. He's an NFL quarterback waiting to happen, but, yeah, I didn't expect that much of a beat down, but at the end of the day, Colorado hopefully can learn from this, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, they're not there yet. And for casual fans who might have just hopped on the college football train because of Colorado, because of the magnetism, I saw somewhere the magnetism of Coach Prime. I saw, I do believe on ESPN, I think that black households watching college football this weekend was about 17%. Well, black households watching Colorado, Oregon, even in that blowout, was 25%. So that's 8%, almost 10% difference in interest. And so if you're one of those types of people who are only interested in college football because of Deion Sanders, welcome to the sport. 1. 2, it is, to your point, Mike, going to get worse before it gets better. I looked at that schedule for them, and I mean this with every fiber in my body. 5 wins. Coach Deion Sanders is Coach of the Year. If they get to 5. They've got 3. They get to 5. Coach of the Year. There are games against USC. There are games, I do believe, against Oregon State,
Utah,
UCLA. All of those programs are ranked. All of them but UCLA that we just named undefeated. UCLA's one loss is to Utah, if that helps at all. I think they got Stanford, Arizona State, I think. And so you say, all right, those are the 3 that you need to win to get bowl eligible. God forbid he does something like upset a USC or something like that on his way to being bowl eligible. Yeah. Absolutely Coach of the Year. But they are a year away. You hit on Alabama A&M over UAPB. 21 combined penalties for the 2 programs. Over 180 yards in penalties. That was an ugly game there for a minute, Mike. It was rough.
It is, man. And you know, it's one of those things where UAPB, they're fighting. They just can't get over the hump. You know what I mean? In that situation, they have a chance to try to get a win in these next couple of weeks. We'll see what they do. But then the next one is the one that surprised me. I'm surprised Prairie View went on the road and beat Alcorn State. I thought Alcorn was ready to get themselves together after playing exclusively a non-conference schedule up until this point. And now, you know, they got stunned. I mean, it was a close game, 23-20. Prairie View won it at the end on a field goal. But kudos to Prairie View. It taught me more about Prairie View than it did about Alcorn State, and I was wrong on that one for sure.
Prairie View A&M has a chance to be set in the conference, be in the driver's seat of that division with a win, potential win this week. We'll talk about that more in a minute. FAMU takes care of business over Alabama State. Alabama State, we talked about it, Mike, you pointed out, not the start that some of us envisioned for them, but it is what it is. FAMU continues to roll.
No question about that. That's just what they are, especially when they're playing at Bragg Memorial Stadium, where they have the nation's 3rd longest active home winning streak. That tells you they don't lose at home, and they're not losing many on the road either. North Carolina Central took care of business. It was expected up at the Circle City Classic over Mississippi Valley State. Valley is playing all these classics. They were in Chicago 2 weeks ago, had a horrible experience off the field that they talked about and kind of made some headlines because of the way they felt they were treated and some of the accommodations. And then they go to Circle City, Indianapolis, and play in one of the best and most professional venues that you can up there in the stadium where, you know, the Indianapolis Colts play. But they just don't have enough right now. North Carolina Central cruise without even their All-American quarterback. And then, hey, man, Tuskegee took care of business.
Barely.
It took care of business, man. That was an OT game too, wasn't it?
I think double overtime.
Yeah,
man. That's what happens when you. I promise you.
Just win, baby. Just
win. Kentucky State. Those are places for a SEAC school, a good team.
Yeah.
A good team in the SEAC. that's where your season goes to die, those two places. Jackson, Tennessee, and wherever Kentucky State is. That's where they go. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a SEAC team be rolling, or hell, anybody be rolling. Tennessee State last year. Yeah. And they end up coming across the Dragons or Kentucky State, and they end up falling.
Taking an L,
like, how? Why?
Yeah.
And okay, all right.
Yeah.
Now Lane has something going. And then Lane just messes around and loses 3 or 4 games the rest of the way.
And so, they had their game early. Tuskegee had to come back and fight and take it, man. And credit to Tuskegee, because you're building. When you're undefeated in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, you say, look, we're supposed to win. We haven't tasted defeat yet, and they're still undefeated. So power to you guys, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am 15-9 overall, and we already talked about all of these games. I went 4-2 as well last week, because I just picked what Mike picked. I said, all right, I'm going to get back on the right side of this. Okay, we're going to do some picks for this week's games, and we'll start with North Carolina A&T versus Norfolk State. Mike, who you got?
Man, I'm obviously, as much as I want Norfolk State now, A&T is 0-3. What do you say? The locals are getting restless. You have former players now getting out on social media. Jermaine Martin came out and blasted the school for not being competitive and switching these conferences the way they did the last 3 or 4 years. Norfolk State has a chance to make a statement right now and basically end A&T season if you're going to do that. If they go 0-4, this is a first-year coach. It's going to be a lot of heat on that administration and that athletic department. But I got North Carolina A&T because of their pride and their history. I think they get a win over Norfolk State.
Campbell versus North Carolina Central, Mike.
Davis Richard, man, I need to know where he's going to be. What's his status? If he's playing, I like North Carolina Central in that game. They lost by 30 points last year to Campbell. This is a get-back game. It's on their situation now, on their terms. I hope that they can get a win, but they need their All-American quarterback to do it.
Next game, Tennessee State, UT Martin.
Hey, listen, man, I got to go with UT Martin, although I want Tennessee State to win this game. UT Martin just don't lose too many games at home. They were in the playoff race a year or two ago. This team is tough when you go up there. I've seen a game at UT Martin. Tennessee State normally don't go up there and play too well, especially in the last few years. I'm going UT Martin.
Tuskegee versus Alabama A&M.
I gotta go with Alabama A&M.
Boo!
Just because,
boo! You see it? Boo, Mike Wallace.
I got to go Alabama A&M because I'm going with the bigger conference team, the bigger division team over the Division II team here, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that pick. I'm going to go there just because I know at least one time this week we better differentiate. So I needed some kind of separation this week. I figured you were going to pick Tuskegee, so I went Alabama A&M.
Grambling versus Prairie View A&M.
I'm picking with my heart on this one, man. Grambling, it's time. The top 2 teams in the SWAC West right now, Grambling's 1-0 in the division. Prairie View's 2-0. The inside lane, as you talked about a few minutes ago, this is the game that's going to decide that at the Cotton Bowl Classic over there in Dallas. I think Grambling can do it. Prairie View's played some close games. Grambling started to get its footing a little bit the last couple of weeks. Let's see if they can make it 3 in a row.
And last but not least, Southern versus Arkansas Pine Bluff.
Man, I really, really want Southern to go to Arkansas Pine Bluff and lose. I really need that. I really need that. And based on my needs, I'm going to go UAPB. Come on, Coach. You told me, look, we bonded. Me and Coach Hampton bonded over the black and gold. It's time now for you to use that black and gold to beat our rival. Let's combine on the black and gold, beat Southern, bring them down a peg so we don't even have to worry about them come by U Classic. They'll be too far out the race if that's the case. This is the week right here. UAPB has to do it at home. Ambush these guys over in Pine Bluff and get it done.
All right, so my picks. Now, I'm with you on North Carolina A&T for much of the same reasons that you stated.
Yeah.
Backs are up against the wall, and I think this is a program with too much pride to be 0-4, 0-5 on the season. So give me North Carolina A&T. I will take Campbell over North Carolina Central, or am I? No, I'm taking North Carolina Central over Campbell. Excuse me. Even without Davius,
help a brother out, get quicker on the trigger.
Even without Davius Richard playing, Walker Harris threw 5 touchdowns in his absence, threw for close to 300, if not more than 300 yards.
But that was against Valley.
It was against Valley. I think he's good enough, and I think that team is really talented.
Around
it's not just a Richard Party. I think that is a well
tight end, running back,
roster. Tight end, running back,
defense,
receiver, and defense is pretty good as well. I will take UT Martin over Tennessee State for many of the reasons that you just named. I think, though, a win this week, and I don't think anybody will be nationally overlooking Tennessee State. I think a win over UT Martin.
They'll put them in the national polls if that's the case.
Yes, absolutely, because UT Martin is receiving votes. UT Martin is, I think, 4th or 5th outside of the top 20, so 29th, 30th in the receiving votes category. I can't believe you would do that to me. I just told you that Alabama A&M had a sloppy game. 11 penalties for 100 yards against University of Arkansas Pine Bluff last week. The week before that, you know how many rushing yards they had? They had minus 17. Ooh. They had negative 17 rushing yards. It was not one thing, it's another. They can't put it all together. Vincent Hill, Malik Moore lead a Golden Tigers defense with multiple turnovers forced in 7 straight games. And don't you forget Roderick Smith, the punter, Michael Wallace.
The punter.
Week 3 SEAC Special Teams Player of the Week. And speaking of special teams, I do believe 3 of the 4 weeks have seen Tuskegee Golden Tigers be Special Teams Players of the Week. The kicker, the return man, and the punter. Some specials brewing down there in Tuskegee, Alabama, Michael.
That's how you win games, baby. Special teams.
That's how you do it.
Yes.
Grambling, not doing that one. I'm not. Since Mike wants to hate on me, give me Prairie View A&M. That's why I'm switching it. I'm switching it. It's not y'all's fault downstairs. I said Grambling over Prairie View A&M. I figured that Grambling would have a bit, not necessarily pride, because they're not A&T. They're not there yet, but an expectation to get to the next level. They got that stud defense. They are led by some great defensive ends, linebackers. They can go out there and take over a game and hold you well under your season average, hold you well under 2 touchdowns in a game if they so choose to. And so I was going to take Grambling, but no, Mike wants to take Alabama A&M.
We'll switch it.
And blah, blah, blah. So give me Prairie View. I don't know how they're going to do it, but damn it, they're going to do it.
Make that edit for next week, guys.
I will make it. We will make it. And then while you may need Arkansas Pine Bluff to beat Southern, I don't think they're there yet. There's some good stuff coming out of Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I think Coach Hampton,
they're competitive, man. They fight,
making them competitive, bit more disciplined, and they'll be there. A bit more discipline, a bit more depth, a bit more talent, and maybe next year or the year after that, they'll be there and they'll win these types of games. I just don't think that they're there just yet. So those are my picks.
Hey, respectable all the way through the board, man. And hey, there's some separation. We disagree on at least 3 of these games right there. And so, hey, listen, you'll either erase the deficit and take over, or you're gonna basically just punt on the season after this, man. It's gonna be fun. We'll see. If I could be at any one of those games, this coming weekend, man, I would love to be at that Southern UAPB game, because Southern travels really, really well. UAPB is one of the places that I haven't been to in 30 years, and I would love to get back to see what they're doing with their new facilities. That game and that environment, that town is going to be rocking, because Southern's going to bring their people, and UAPB is going to certainly hold fort down there in terms of their fan base as well. So that's going to be a great atmosphere.
Absolutely. It will. On the other side, we will talk some about our culture maker, Jackson State, doing some big things. We got that coming up next, plus the U.S. News and World Report's top 5 HBCUs. We'll talk about all that and more on the other side.
Live across North America, Adam Sandler.
It's going to be our kind of night here.
Joking.
One more cartwheel and out.
Singing.
You guys want to get funky? Let's get funky together.
Funkin'.
I've been thinking about you. One zip. Oh, shit, man.
FedEx Forum, November 16th. The I Missed You Tour. Get tickets now at livenation.com.
Biggest off-season development, what you think?
The additions of Marcus Smart and Derrick Rose, both are hugely important, I think, to this team for leadership purposes.
Just the fact that you locked up Desmond Bain on a max contract.
Hey, Grizzlies fans, be sure to tune in to Grisby, where the panel and I break down all things Grizzlies and take a look at the rest of the NBA as well. The show is live every Wednesday, 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
8-time Grammy Award-winning Anita Baker. Anita Baker, the songstress, live in concert. For one night only. FedEx Forum, November 22nd, 2023. Get tickets now at livenation.com. Don't miss your chance to see the legendary Anita Baker live in Memphis.
Everyone's favorite shoe is a friggin' Travis Scott. I feel like everyone loves these shoes. Not these ones, but there's another Travis Scott collab released or scheduled for 2024. Can you hear the excitement in my
They
voice?
are doing everything they can to build up the hype.
I think these are going to flop.
I think these are so ugly.
The Sneak Fest Show, live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
The U.S. News and World Report came out looking at top colleges in the United States. They also looked at top HBCUs, not just PWIs, but HBCUs as well. They unveiled their top 5 list, and it, for me, Mike, since I've been cognizant of this list, it's the same cast of characters. Spelman, I think Spelman's riding a hell of a streak here.
They are.
Howard is 2nd, FAMU 3rd, Tuskegee is 4th, Morehouse 5. Mike.
Yeah. And you know what, man? When you sent me this and we previewed the show and went over this topic, I had to scroll a long damn way to get to my school, man. Like I was like, hold on, yo, man, Grambling was all the way down in like 47 or something like that, maybe even 67, depending on how many numbers there were. And what they base this on, and correct me if I'm wrong, CJ, but it's a lot of factors that go into rating these schools, test scores, enrollment data, graduation rates, a lot of different things that go into it. And it doesn't surprise me that you have a lot of private schools in the top 5 because the selection process is a lot more rigid to get into those. And once you get in, you're typically getting students who are more acclimated to college life, and at least performance academically. But if anybody is looking at an HBCU, go to that report and scroll the list, and you're going to find all the information you need to feel a lot more comfortable about exploring and where you want to go. I was proud to look at that list and see all the schools listed there, no matter what it is: state school, small school, private school, East Coast, South, Midwest area type thing. All of them are in there, and you can find every bit of information you want to make the choice to go to HBCU.
Absolutely.
And Tuskegee, top 5.
Tuskegee, top 5.
Top 5, yeah.
Top 5.
Yeah.
Number 4.
No shame.
As long as they're ahead of Morehouse, I don't care where they are. That's all that matters, baby. Morehouse, Clark, got to find a way to be ahead of Spelman, and we're all to the good.
You're not going to beat out Spelman and Howard right now. Spelman, Howard, FAMU, Hampton, those schools are just going to be entrenched. Tuskegee, those are going to be entrenched there because they just have some magical, amazing programs, first and foremost. And then when you add in where they're located, you can't go wrong, man. Those are awesome, some special universities. But a couple of the schools that made the top 10, I had visits to, coming out of high school and athletic visits to go play. But for whatever reason, man, I was just infatuated when I went all the way 1,600 miles away and saw Grambling's campus, man. But if I had to make the choice again, I would go to Grambling again. But at the end of the day, you can't go wrong by throwing a dart at that list, and wherever you land, you're going to be in a special environment.
Absolutely. Speaking of special environments, Jackson State, still special.
Yep.
Always been special. It's not just prime. They were special before. They were special during. They're still special. They did some special things this weekend. Leilana Armenta, our culture maker, became the first female kicker in not just Jackson State history, but I do believe in all of HBCU history as well when she took the field and kicked for the I Love. She's a freshman place kicker from Ventura, California. Went 98 for 105 on extra points in high school. In high school, she was first team All-Marymount League in 2021. She was honorable mention in 2022. And like I said, first documented woman to play in an HBCU football game. And let's hear from her about what that moment means and what it was like for her out there on the field. We don't got the video, unfortunately.
Well, tell us what she said, CJ.
Just basically that, it was an
in
honor,
her voice.
It was an honor and a privilege. I'm not going to do her voice, but it was an honor and a privilege.
Yeah,
to get out there and do that, and she appreciated the opportunity. And this isn't so many times you see these types of things happen, and people jump on it. Oh, it's a gimmick. Oh, they're just trying to do blah, 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 blah. I don't want to use a W word because I get so annoyed when people use the word woke like it's a negative thing or what have you. Like it's a try hard type of situation where, oh, y'all are just trying to appease to fans or trying to bring more people in from an eyeball standpoint. This has nothing to do about the game. Well, Jackson State suffered injuries, big time injuries, and Matt Noel and Gerardo Beza, who've been handling punting and kickoff duties. Beza was injured in the game against Texas State. Noel was hurt in practice last week, and so TC Taylor, Coach Taylor, was looking around like, yo, we need a kicker. Do we got anybody? And went to the woman. Anybody played football in high school? Anybody kicked in high school? Went to Jackson State's soccer team. She played soccer for Jackson State. She said, yeah, I kicked in high school. And TC said, okay, cool. Come kick for us. And she had a well-executed pooch kick and had a couple other kicks as well on kickoffs. So hats off to her.
Hats off to her, and this was out of necessity, right? This wasn't him trying to make history or him trying. As you said, they had some devastating injuries in the kicking game. HBCU kickers, I mean, there's just not a lot of depth in that position anyway to begin with. And then you mentioned two of the guys that got hurt. The third guy went with Prime to Colorado, right? The other kicker. And so he didn't have a lot there. And, fortunately, he opened it up. She came out, worked out, and deserved it. And, when you put someone in that position and they execute and exceed, you always have to be proud of that. And, again, it's a white female at a historically black university. You don't not see that, right? You don't not notice that part of it, and you're wondering, okay, were there any African Americans or blacks or whatever? But that part of it is not as important as who I have available, who's willing, who's capable, and if that's what you need in that moment, she did a remarkable job. My only concern, though, is that as a competitor on the field with her, are you putting her at risk if there's a return, and is she going to be able to contribute to kickoff coverage? You know what I'm saying? If somebody breaks and are you putting her in harm's way physically, because of that? But if not, and if she is capable of doing all of the job that comes with being a kicker, including being a football player in kickoff coverage, then hey, listen, I'm all for it, man, and I want her to continue to be successful.
I think she's non-black. I'm not sure if she's white.
Okay.
But I don't know her ethnic breakdown. We see white kickers. And at the HBCU level all the time. We see white baseball players. We see hell, we had a whole white team in the CIAA for a long time.
Okay.
And Chowan.
Yeah.
And so that's fine. It's about opportunities being given and people making the most of them. And she made the most of hers. If your kickoff, they have struggled on kickoff coverage. Let me be clear. Jackson State has. They struggled particularly against Texas State. When the two played. If your kickoff team is banking on your kicker to make a tackle, you're in trouble. You're already in trouble. You've got other problems, dog.
You've
got big issues.
You're already in trouble.
You're already in trouble.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. You can catch last week's episode or any episode on the Grind City Media app, Grind City Media YouTube channel.
Homecoming season.
Homecoming season is
coming. Homecoming season is coming. Yes.
Homecoming season. I love it. Thank you guys so much for listening this week. Go back, check out other podcasts, and check out any other podcast, not just this one, Sneak Fest, Jessica Benson Show, Chris Vernon Show, all of the shows on the Grind City Media app. That'll do it for us. For Mike, I'm CJ. Everybody take care.